This is your 4x4 and we're taking you with us on our 5-part border track adventure. We've had an easy trek through the border track's beautiful northern stretch, but just our luck, one of our vehicles has suffered a few under the bonnet battle scars. And what should have been a quick replacement has now turned into a major mechanical liability. With the challenging southern section of the border track still ahead of us, let's hope our car park repair skills are up to the task, or else the adventure ends here.
Your 4x4 is presented by Iveco, Trek Hardware, ARB, Cooper, Piranha, Nava and Carryboy.
So unfortunately, the alternator that we travelled all the way back to Adelaide to get turned out to be utterly useless.
Was off a PX2, despite being told we needed one for a PX1. Alan and Simon looked at it. Unfortunately, it couldn't sort of be retrofitted or modified in any way. We had to make do with the original one.
Awesome, okay, good. Excellent. How good is that, guys?
So Simon and Al worked it out, got the alternator to where it needs to be.
Gave it a really good clean, got it back in and got all the belts back together, got her going, and touch wood, it's going perfect.
If things go pear-shaped, we'll hook this up to the back of the Iveco and just
Drag it, skull drag
we'll
it.
skull drag.
Luke, you're
excited, aren't you?
After we got rolling, we started to head south on the border track. And I tell you, it's spectacular to see. It really is. It's a hidden gem in Victoria.
We've just ventured in this morning into Narcat Conservation Area. Absolutely amazing. For most people in the four-wheel drive industry, it's one of their dreams to do this track. It really is really cool. It just shadows the Victorian South Australian border up and down the state.
We entered it from north, which you've got to do because it is a one-way, the section that we're on now. That's where the sand flags come in. Because it is one way, you can just at least see if anyone has stopped over the crest of a hill. And you can see also that there are some people that have come at this more towards the entrance, so I guess, and probably late at night, they have gone the wrong direction, and you can see it because they've dug huge big wallows coming up the dunes, and we experienced them as we came down. But otherwise, it's magnificent. It's all free-flowing, heaps of bumps, heaps of corrugations.
It's one of those legendary tracks, and it's got quite a few surprises and twists and turns for you. It is very, very bumpy. The car's not just going backward and forward, you're going side to side, backward and forward, and sometimes nearly all at once.
Yeah, you felt like you're on the Spirit of Tasmania on a bad night. I was actually cheating on the Fitbit because it's given a lot of steps that I didn't actually do. That's how rough it is.
Which means anything that's not tied down will escape, and it does.
Pack it down, bouncing around everywhere. It's only going to get bumpier. Here we go, this will be fun.
Normally I'd just go hell for leather, I suppose, when you've got soft sand and just basically lines that you can follow, but I just took it a little bit easier with the car because I still wasn't sure if everything's going fine.
How's the car holding up this morning? With any odd noises, or is it performing well?
It's holding up all right. There's a little bit of a knock, but we'll sort it out later on.
The other thing I guess you've got to know about this track is it is quite remote. I mean, if you were to have a breakdown or something went wrong, like Luch's alternator had failed out here, getting recovery would be very, very expensive. This track is unmaintained. I'm not sure actually what they'd send out to do a recovery other than possibly another four-wheel drive. So you do need to be very well prepared.
Do it in groups like we are here. You don't have to do as big a convoy as we are. If you've come with friends, if you ever get stuck, they can pull you out. It is a popular track, but even so, we haven't seen anyone on it today, so it's advisable to come along and do it with mates.
Did you hear the good news, Jake? It's morning tea time. Mike's on the job.
Oh, I was just got an instant grin when I heard that one. I've been hanging out to just hear those magical words.
Looking forward to seeing the rest of this. We're about halfway through it. We've got a fair bit to go yet, and we still don't know what's ahead of us, so it's going to be a great afternoon.
We're getting the call up now to go and jump back in the vehicle, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what the rest of the track's like. So I'll leave you here and we'll get going.
Luciano has been complaining about this noise that he's got in the front of his car. I've almost sent him off for some medical help because I think he's dreaming.
That knock in your front end gone away, Luch?
Not yet.
So I thought I'd just add to it a little bit. So Simon and I decided we'd put one of the shackles off the rear of his car and hang it up off the front off one of his new coil springs.
Yeah, it sounds similar to the noise it was doing the other day when it snapped. I'm hearing this sound more than when I'm going over bumps. I'm hearing a lot more.
It was quite amusing listening to him on the radio, quite panicked and quite disturbed that he's got another knock coming from the front.
You hear that?
Yeah, on that side. Yep, I can see it.
You see it?
Yeah,
What's the problem, Luch?
it's the arm. It's not the bolt, it's not the U-bolt. Look, Simon.
而小媳妇还没发现出来，那时候我已经笑得我就已经合不上嘴了，都已经。
Can you have a look? It's not this. It's not this. No. It better not be that because I'm going to kill Michael.
And when we got out and checked it all out, found that, it was quite a good laugh at the time.
That's why you got the camera on the
小媳妇看见之后吧，她也自己大笑。
Oh, that's not quite cartoon. GoPro sitting there watching it and everyone having a good giggle on my behalf. That's fine.
As we approached the trig point, we stopped and had a look and noticed there was a photographer's platform. Many of us were up there enjoying the view.
And the scenery and landscape around was very, very nice, and you could see for miles. And it showed how vast this area is.
The view's absolutely amazing. As you can see the track, the border track to your left and to your right. Best sight I've seen in a very long time.
Things about this track that's quite surprising is you're driving along and you're going up a sand dune and it is really gnarly. It's quite steep, quite difficult, and really quite a challenging thing.
要说感觉上来说呢，可能今天略微难一点吧，因为有些地方可能就得多加点油门。如果速度太快的话呢，它是比较容易伤到车的，因为这边的这个沙子非常的硬。
And all of a sudden, guess what? Tennis nets. It blew me away. Like the sort of nets you see in tennis courts, they've been laid on some of the dunes. They're black with white stripes on the end of them and enables you to actually drive up that section of dune which looks really, really tough from a distance with relative ease without any erosion. So to whoever put the tennis nets down, a great big thank you. That was fantastic, I loved it. On the border track, the border is actually surprisingly well clearly marked by way of a fence. It consists of a sort of a chicken wire, some mesh and some barbed wire, and that stays on the left-hand side, and you're following that whole fence all the way along.
I had a little spot of bother. I think it was Jake left some pretty big holes in the Raptor for me, and with the Hilux and the slightly smaller wheels, I was just on its belly.
I think you're stuck.
I think you're right, mate. First we deployed the Tread Pros, made a bit of progress, but as soon as we fell off the end of the Tread Pros, it was on its belly again.
There was no traction whatsoever. I came up behind him, winched him backwards, allowed him to get back onto firmer ground. We dropped the tyre pressures down to 14, and away he went straight up the hill.
Well, that was a bit of fun, Stephen.
It certainly was, mate. Sounds like the convoy's up ahead, having a bit of fun. I can see some dunes, so I reckon that might be where they are.
After some good pranks and even better pictures, the crew found themselves at the base of their first challenge. Al and Simon pondered over lines and strategies, but in the end, the daily 4x4 just walked it up. Hopefully it'll be that simple for the whole group.
Got to a couple of really big challenging dunes, a number of paths to select from, and there's a couple of chicken tracks as well. If it was a bit too much, you could scoot around the outside of them, but we're all up for the challenge.
A couple of sand dunes, but one in particular, and it had two tracks, one going to the left and one going up to the right. The right one was a little bit more rutty to a degree. I took that one. Car handled it really well. First shot, went straight up, no hesitation. It was just amazing getting up there at a point and knowing that the car could still do it. The boys fixed it up really, really good for me.
We continued on, further down into the dunes, and as you travel down, the colour of the terrain changes. You get this white sand, then it goes to sort of almost a browny coloured sand, and it goes back to white sand again. And I guess as you look at the different sand colours, it does give you some indication as to the level or lack thereof of traction. Up the top, the cheering squad was up there watching, having a great time, so this was really good fun.
Absolutely awesome putting together some of the tricks that Julian taught me. That section in the border track where we had a few options to go over this sand dune, we all gave it a good crack getting stuck. Put Julian's few tips together, put it into motion, and we got up there with Julian as a passenger. Just awesome, his face said it all.
Good. Good.
The Chinese have been going really, really well on this stuff. They know how to drive sand. However, on the first big dune, after about 3 attempts, they got so stuck they had to be snatched backwards by Jeff.
Snatched them back out so they could get another run up. Once they dropped their tyre pressures even further from where they were, they cleared the hill.
After much encouragement, they actually got up that dune beautifully in a perfect run. The next dune after this looks very, very similar, and that's again got multiple paths, and everyone did really well getting up that after the embarrassment of many stickings on the first one. So our day has been a lot of fun, which is really, really good.
All of us absolutely ravished after the sand dunes and all the effort we put into it. Luckily didn't lose any cars. Whipped up some food for the guys, so they're all sweet and happy and the bellies are full.
After making another fantastic lunch for us on the track, Mike had to shoot off and head into town to pick up a window for his canopy.
Due to being a klutz, Mick and I had to take off from the group to go and pick up the replacement glass.
With the repairs in the morning, it meant that we set off a little bit later than we anticipated, but it did mean that we got to see some amazing scenes on the track. Literally the sunset that we saw whilst we were out there still on the border track, the beautiful orange and the shadows of all the trees as you look across, it's just amazing.
We all came in, our headlights blaring on high beam, but we had sitting behind us this magnificent sunset. The whole trees are sort of an orange-reddy colour. There's the black of the shadows. It's just beautiful.
driving through the night, everyone with their high beam on, looked fantastic in the distance. Just all these cars travelling along the track in the distance with their high beams on was just spectacular.
So we came into camp quite slowly, and yet again, driving at night, this is the thing you have to really watch out for. The lights don't necessarily give you an indication as to how deep the holes are, so quite often you hit a pretty nasty hole, and you've got to be very, very careful of that.
Red Bluff Campground was a welcome sight after a long day's trek, but with the mercury hitting single digits, we were going to need every twig of wood that the daily 4x4 had lugged from the big desert state forest to keep warm and get rested for our final day on the border track.
This morning we woke up and the tent's frozen. I've moved my tent over there into the sun because it was actually covered in ice. The cameras are fogging up, all sorts of things. My glasses were fogging up before.
We had to get the fire going again to warm everyone up. I was quite warm in my new ARB sleeping bag. Best I've had, was fantastic.
Jake and Mike had returned from their epic adventure into Horsham. Jake had accidentally broken Mike's window and felt probably obliged to go with him. I think it ended up being about a 5-hour round trip.
We'll head off shortly, head back out onto the track. It's going to be great exploring more of this area today, and I'm quite looking forward to it.
Oh, I love it, love it. It's been a beautiful night of camping here at Red Bluff. We had some neighbours, they were quiet, and they've done a fantastic job of cleaning up their campsite. But seriously guys, have a look at this. I just don't understand the mentality. We're in drought, we're just out of fire season, and these guys have packed up their camp and left this fire just burning away like this. And worse still, it's got tin foil, it's got cans in there. It's an absolute mess. We'll get this cleaned up before we head out this morning.
To ensure that a campfire is correctly put out, it's best to use water, which is a hard thing to come by when you're out in desert country. Luckily, Simon's daily 4x4 is equipped with a massive 200-litre water tank. With the flip of a switch, the electric pump can output water for cooking, cleaning, or in this case, putting out a fire. The pump, along with many of the accessories, is powered by a Sentry lithium battery system with a massive 300 amp-hour rating. Shumin and Simon made quick work on putting out the embers and scooped up all of the cans, which should never go into a fire anyway. With the rubbish all bagged up and loaded onto the Iveco, we made sure the fire was completely extinguished before we departed. As well as the water pump, there's plenty of gear on Simon's daily 4x4 that's helped with all the camping on this trip. With work lamps on the rear to light up the campsite, the EVA tray offers ample space for the entire crew's bedding and chairs. Plus we're carrying 3 My Coolman fridges, which can be monitored and controlled via a smartphone app, all of which makes life out here so much easier.
Now the sun's shining, it's a magnificent day, and we're going to crack on further down the track.
Whilst powering through the dunes to get ahead of the group, the 4-wheel drive TV camera car got absolutely entrenched in the soft sand. In need of a speedy recovery to keep the day on track, this was the perfect opportunity for Simon to test out his Mean Mother rear winch setup.
We already knew that the sand dunes we were going to see were absolutely monstrous.
This is probably the most iconic part of the track. It's what people come here to do.
It was a bit of a climb up with a turn at the top. And then we had a double dip.
and there was an enormous hole after that. That's where people got launched and all sorts of cool things happened.
That last dune was just so much fun, not damaging to the cars or anything like that, not dangerous in any way that you'd get in trouble, but a lot of fun.
With the sweet victory of conquering the sand dunes fresh on our minds, just around the corner, the track served up one final challenge. Will we make it through or stumble at the finish line? Be watching next week for the final leg of our adventure along the border track and beyond.